Hello and welcome to another Tim Allen 1337 guide, where today we're going to be going over the basics of Wizard. I want to break this up into a couple of videos, so this one is going to be mainly focused on the basics of combat, what skills you want to focus on, what's important for PvE, PvP, and then we'll touch on the skill add-ons and crystals at the end. This is going to be an Xbox video, so mind that there have been changes to Witch and Wizard on nearly all the other versions of the game, but we're going to focus on what's currently available on Xbox as of the uploading of this video. If we do get the changes, I'll be sure to update you guys on how it affects the class. First, let's touch on why you'd want to choose Wizard. They've got a ton in their kit. Heals, massive debuff, grab, super armor CC skills, buffs. There's plenty of ways to play Wizard and a lot of strengths. The only real major fault here is their lack of ability to 1v1. If you want to get good at it, it's going to take a lot of practice. You'll want to pick Wizard though if you want to grind a little better than Witch, if you love diving deep into a pack of enemies during wars, but also have the patience to wait and set up opportunities not only for yourself but for your teammates too, as the long range kit on Wizard is extremely good and it's only going to get better with time. Let's talk about super armor and frontal guards. As a wizard, you're going to be using super armors the most. This means when you're casting a spell, the only kind of crowd control or CC that you're vulnerable to is grab. So someone has to walk up to you and physically throw you on the floor. Otherwise, you're taking damage, but you're immune to all other forms of CC. The second type is called frontal guard. These are spells that act as if you're blocking. It has a finite amount of health. You can't be CC'd in the front, except for being grabbed, but you will take damage and all forms of CC if somebody hits you in the back. Now let's get into the skills. I will not be showing you guys builds for pre-awaken. Just make sure you have Fireball, Explosion, and Residual Lightning if you're leveling to 56. But let's jump into the awaken skills first. There's very little difference in the skills you'll need from PvE to PvP for Wizard. To that end, you'll want to focus on Cataclysm first. This skill does great damage, and it's one of the rare skills throughout the game that have super armor and a crowd control on it, in this case is bound. You can bait people into this skill or teleport behind a pack of people and catch them off guard. This is your most important move. At level 60, you'll unlock a flow for this skill that will increase its range and damage considerably. This makes getting to level 60 an obvious first goal for Witch and Wizard. The next skill is Bow-Lighted Destruction. This is your ultimate, or your 100% as it's commonly referred to in the game. You can cast it without having 100% Black Spirit Rage. The only difference is a longer animation and considerably more damage when you use it with your 100%. This is a slow-moving nuke that has super armor and no crowd control. You really want to save this for when you're attacking a group of people who are already bound or knocked down. You can bind this to the ring menu if you'd like, so if you cast the skill from the ring menu, it won't use its 100% even if it's available, so you can save it for when you really want to use that extra damage. This skill naturally flows very well after Cataclysm, and they're both super armor. Catch and bound them with Cataclysm, and then nuke them with the Bow Light right after. Your last awakened super armor skill is Aqua Jail Explosion. This is a rather weak skill at the moment in PvP, but you'll still want to use this as part of your super armor rotation for large-scale PvP when you dive into a pack of people. But this is pretty good for PvE, just make sure you try to get back attack damage when you use it. Water Sphere is an incredibly important skill along with its flow, Aqua Bomb. Though it's unprotected, this is Wizard's main way of catching people at a distance in PvP using their awakening. It can also clear entire packs of easier Valencian mobs with enough AP, and it's recastable when on cooldown, although it doesn't cast a CC. The flow is great because it smashes a target, which is basically a free way to extend a CC combo. It's a little more advanced, but for now, just watch how I cancel the back half of the animation so you can move on to your next skill a little faster. If you're new to BDO or Wizard, the skill Hellfire is mainly just a PvE move and best not to prioritize for now. Hellfire is situational for when you know you're safely behind a pack of mostly knockdown enemies or pulling off a 1v1 combo, but it's slow and it's risky. Chilling Wave and its flow Arn's Guidance are skills that you should consider last. They're undertuned, especially when compared to the Witch's skill Yoke of Ordeal, which is very similar and does a ton of damage. Hopefully we'll see an update to this soon, but for now, it's just a frontal guard that has a long cast that's extremely situational. Last in the Awakening tree I want to bring up is the class buff, Controlled Madness. This gives a much needed casting buff to Wizard, along with other buffs for you and your guildmates. Make sure you're using this on big pushes. It'll make that Cataclysm Bull Lag combo go off much smoother. Now let's talk about the few unawakened skills you'll want to either take, absolute, or avoid. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these. It should be fairly obvious why you want to take or avoid these skills. Remember, this is just a starter guide for the basics. You'll want to absolute multiple magic arrows, or as everybody calls it, MMA. This is huge damage in PvE and PvP. Just be careful when you use it because it's unprotected. You're going to want to leave Fireball at level 1 for now. You never fully cast Fireball. The cost of opportunity is way too high. Cast it early by pressing the right trigger. Damage-wise, you're really only using this to proc Fireball Explosion, which has a much higher cooldown than Fireball even at rank 1. Which brings us into the next skill, Absolute Fireball Explosion. You'll definitely want to get this as soon as possible. You're going to use it for the rest of your time playing this game as Wizard. Get it now and learn to love it. Absolute Meteor is another reason you want to be level 60 as soon as possible. It's great damage, and the cooldown reduction bringing it to 30 seconds is awesome for large-scale PvP. The range is great, it's a frontal guard that turns into a super armor, and it's a great way to engage on Witch and Wizard. This is something you definitely want to prioritize as soon as possible. Adversely, you're going to want to keep Blizzard at level 1. It's really only used for large-scale PvP as some sort of group debuff. It's not worth a huge amount of skill points that it takes until at least 2,000 skill points or even beyond. It's something you definitely want to have, but you just don't want to rank it up. The last skills you're going to want to max out is Mind Training and Infinite Mastery, and then Absolute Earthquake. This is a great skill for PvE and PvP, and with only a 20-second cooldown, it's always at your fingertips. This is a super armor with a crowd control attached to it as well. It's great for catching Sorks DKs or just diving the backline in a node war. That about covers it for the basics of what you want to focus and avoid on the skill trees. Now let's talk about the ring menu. This is where things are definitely up to some user preference. When I play BDO, I focus on large-scale PvP like Guild vs. Guild Wars, Node Wars, and Siege. So my bars are set up for that type of play. You can be flexible on this, but I'll walk you through what I have on my ring menus and why. To me, left and right D-pad being Absolute MMA and Water Sphere are 100% mandatory. First, you can only use MMA if it's bound to your ring menu. There is no button key on the controller to make it happen. First and foremost though, this is how you swap from Awaken to Unawaken without having to hit the Y button. In battle situations, hitting Y is a cost of opportunity for your damage and will leave you really vulnerable. MMA will get you to Staff, and Water Sphere will get you to Awakening. Do please note though that both of these skills are not protected, so you are still susceptible to CC while you're doing this. Next is a list of buffs and large-scale PvP casts. I keep Blue and Red Lighthouse here, Speed Spell, Sage's Memory, Controlled Madness, and my Rage Absorb buff when I'm grinding. I find all of these skills I want to have on the ring menu, but don't really need their own dedicated button. You're normally casting these before a fight or from a safe distance, though you could argue Meteor demanding its own ring slot very easily. Lastly are my two heals. Healing Aura is a must. If you have it on your ring menu, you can cast it with your Awakening weapons out. You don't have to swap to your staff. I also put Healing Lighthouse on its own bar too, because I don't want to have to swap to Unawaken first in order to cast it. One of the big parts of being a Witcher Wiz is to be able to heal quickly. Do not leave these off your ring menu. The only thing that's not shown is that I'll put large health pots on my button where the force flag for PvP is. That's very clutch when you get knocked down in PvP, and I recommend keeping some on you all the time. I quickly want to go over the skill add-ons that I use, but let me preface that this is really largely open. Witch and Wizard have pretty bad skill add-ons, but this is what I use. These Unawakened skills are really the only ones you consider using. You might be tempted to put an add-on on Earthquake instead of Blizzard, and you'd be fine doing that. Again, I'm set up for large-scale PvP, so Meteor Shower having healing is a lot better than it sounds. Getting down smash on a Fireball Explosion is awesome the rare time that it happens, and the pain damage on Blizzard is probably as much damage as the actual skill. With Awakenings, you'll want to use Cataclysm for defense and bleed. I chose Aqua Jail for my second, mostly for the PvE buff and some bleed damage. For a third, as you can see, I'm not level 60 yet, but you probably just want to stick something on Bolide. Really, it's up to you. Again, these just really don't make that big of a difference for Witch Wizard. Lastly, just to make some comments on gems, this is another section where you can really be creative, and it's really individualized, but ultimately, as long as you have 5 cast speed and 5 crit, you're solid. You can use inexpensive elixirs known as shock elixirs to make up some extra crit if you don't mind being endlessly tied to those elixirs. Remember, Zarka has 3 cast speed and Laverto has 3 crit, so you'll have to change up your gems if you upgrade from those. Don't be fooled by AP gems. This is not the same as AP that shows up on your character sheet. It does help, but not nearly as important as cast speed and crit. That'll do it for this video. Next time we'll get into a couple of the combos and combat for Wizard. I just wanted to stick to the basics here. Also look for my Node War readiness video that will be going over how to properly buff and be ready for PvP in this game so you can always be at your best. Thanks for watching and referencing this video. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to field them in the comments section below. Be sure to subscribe for many more videos on Black Desert Online. There's a lot in this game, but we've barely scratched the surface. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video.